Salutations, respected viewers. This is George from Ireland. Here I am at the Oxford Union in Oxford. So this is a debating society and a social society, and unfortunately it's not the oldest one in the world, or even the oldest university one. This was founded in 1823. The Cambridge Union pips Oxford by a few years. And it's not originally on this site. You can obviously see the architecture is from the era. This is mid-19th century, because as I say, this society was not founded on the current site. It only moved here around about 1860, if memory serves. So up until then, the various colleges of Oxford University, and there were around 20 of them, had their own debating societies. But there were certain topics, political and religious, they weren't allowed to debate. Religion was a much bigger part of the mission of Oxford University. Well, it's not part of the mission anymore. Remember, it was a university to some extent run by the Church of England. Almost all the fellows, that's like the lecturers, almost all the dons, the accountants, almost everybody was an Anglican, and indeed an Anglican priest in the great majority of cases. So in 1823 this was founded. It was a time of political ferment because there was a revolution in the air, and should Catholic emancipation be abolished? What else were they debating? The abolition of slavery, the Great Reform Act, as in should more men be allowed to vote? Remember, only about 5% of men were allowed to vote at the time. So then the Oxford Union Society was founded, and it was outside the disciplinary purview of the university. So the proctors, the university officials in charge of the university, had no sway here. The university had its own police force until 2000. Even when I was here, it had its own police force. Had its own prison until the 1920s. Anyway, so the Oxford Union Society, as I said, was established on King Edward Street, and then later moved here. And I showed you the library. The library is that one, the interior behind me, and that was the original debating chamber. Then they moved here, and this is the new debating chamber. So it's a complex of buildings. Unfortunately, it's not open right now. 1878 it was constructed, and very handsome it is. It's got superb acoustics because they had no sound system back then, and it's got gardens as well. So I can't remember who said it, but whoever's caught the eye, the president of the Oxford Union is often caught the eye of the world later on. His 5 prime ministers have been president. William Ewart Gladstone is often wrongly cited amongst their number. He was a treasurer of the Oxford Union Society. He was never the president of it, but he did go on to be prime minister 4 times, so I suppose he got second prize. And various other leaders have gone on. I can't remember who it was. One of the prime ministers of Sri Lanka was Bandaranaike, and he was later something like Under Secretary General of the United Nations. Benazir Bhutto, twice Prime Minister of Pakistan. She was president of the Oxford Union, and people used to hold vigils for her here when she was imprisoned in Pakistan in the 1980s, and indeed when she was assassinated in 2007. Her father's an Oxonian, was not involved in the union. Then you see up here, I wish I could show you inside, William Shakespeare's head in the middle of that window above. On the ground floor there's a bar. It doesn't just serve alcoholic drinks, a few snacks. Then there's the Goodman Library. I'm not allowed to film inside the buildings. I've been a bit naughty. So this is named after Lord Goodman, who was not an Oxonian, I'm pretty sure. So the Goodman Library, well, yes, it is indeed a library. To begin with, well, the current library was the debating chamber. This was the library, not very extensive. What else about it? So Lord Goodman, he was a very prominent solicitor and active member of the Labour Party, confidant of Harold Wilson, Prime Minister. And he didn't attend Oxford, actually, Goodman, but then he became Master of University College. That's my college, in the 60s, if I've got that right. And I think a very generous donor to the society. So he said that he was a court Jew, as in someone that people even who were anti-Semitic considered to be acceptable because he was so bright and good at getting things done. So you can see those leather-bound volumes. There'll be things like the North American Review, Hansard, which is a verbatim report of House of Commons debates. So some more speaker meetings are held in there. They're debates, they're speaker meetings where famous people come to address the society. When I was here, Michael Jackson came to speak, and it was the only place in the world you could see Michael Jackson for free. He wasn't singing, he was just speaking about his charity. And this bit's called the house, and the house manager used to live up there. Just storerooms for the kitchen. Then upstairs there's the Macmillan room, and the Macmillan room is a dining room. It used to be a restaurant a long time ago, named after the Prime Minister, Harold Macmillan, who was here just before the First World War, very involved in the society. I believe he was elected to be president, and due to come back in October, that's when the university year starts, to serve as president. However, by that time the First World War broke out. He volunteered for the Grenadier Guards and went off to the First World War. And he considered returning to university after the war, which to his astonishment he'd survived, and he said, no, for me Oxford is a city of ghosts, because so many of his young friends had been killed in the war. He did come back here as Chancellor of the university. The person who's the ultimate authority of the university is the Chancellor. He's elected by all the graduates, and he serves for life. I say he, no woman has so far been elected. Alright, so that's a whistle-stops tour of the Oxford Union Society. And those are things, their parties here, balls are held here, people are celebrating outside. I was twice on the standing committee of the union, that's the governing body, and we had to serve, we didn't get paid to do that, had to serve drinks and fry food and things like that and clean up afterwards. And there was a Hawaiian theme and 2 boys came in Hawaiian shirts, 2 boys from Brooks as I recall, and they got so blind drunk that we kicked everyone out at 2 AM, we're still clearing up about 4 AM. And I discovered them in asleep in a bush back there, woke them up, but they were completely incoherent, slurring their speech, and they didn't know where the hell they were. Well, that's it, the wonderful Oxford Union, which was my playground when I was here. That bar was like my drawing room. I came here every day, almost used it as a corridor going from St Michael Street to Fruin Court and out. Alright, I shall switch it off.